A variety of factors affect the relative supply and demand for labor in organizations. Managers must examine both the internal and external environmental factors that exert pressure on the labor supply relative to its demand. Let's take a look at internal factors of workforce planning. At any point in time, some parts of a company may be facing shortages of employee talent, whereas others may have surpluses. Let's now discuss these internal factors in more detail. Managers consider the internal labor force or a company's current employees when it comes to meeting current and long-term workforce needs. However, the internal labor force is not static but changes over time. Employee turnover, which directly affects a firm's labor demand, includes the voluntary and involuntary termination of employees within an organization. The primary difference between the two types is whether the turnover is initiated by the company, which is involuntary turnover, or by the employee, which is voluntary turnover. Industries vary in their total rate of separation, voluntary and involuntary turnover, as well as their voluntary turnovers. Service industries, such as accommodation, food and drinking places, the arts, entertainment, and recreation, as well as retail and wholesale, tend to have higher turnover rates than do high-tech, education, government, and professional trade organizations. Turnover has significant impact on organizations. The most obvious impact occurs when a company loses a talented employee. Another problem occurs when an employee's former coworkers, those who remain at the firm, must pick up the slack to make sure the work still gets done. Even when a replacement employee is eventually hired, his or her coworkers are still likely to experience stress until the newly hired person gets fully up to speed. Even without turnover, the profile of a company's workforce changes over time as employees move into different jobs. Companies use promotions, transfers, and demotions to move employees from one job to another. Promotions involve moving employees to higher level positions, which often are associated with increased levels of responsibility and authority. Employees can also transfer to other jobs with similar levels of responsibility. Employees can also be demoted or moved to lower level positions within their company. Of course, moving people throughout an organization should not be done haphazardly. Managers can use several tools to help track employee movements: replacement charts, succession planning, and transition matrices. Companies use replacement charts to identify potential replacement employees for positions that could open up within their organization. Essentially, a replacement chart shows the employees who could possibly be moved from one job to another if vacancies occur. With such a system in place, a company is ready to make personnel changes on short notice. Succession planning is similar to using replacement charts but focuses on identifying employees who might be viable successors for top managerial positions. As the name implies, succession planning involves identifying who is next in line for higher level jobs. It also requires the company to fill in information about any skill a potential successor needs to develop. A well-defined succession process is important for a variety of reasons. A third tool that managers can use to understand the internal movement trends of their workforces is a transition matrix. A transition matrix provides a model for tracking the movement of employees throughout an organization rather than in a single job over a certain period of time. Productivity refers to the level of a firm's output, the products or services, relative to inputs, employees, equipment, material, and so forth, used to produce the output. A productivity ratio reflects the number of employees, labor demand, needed to achieve a certain output level of sales, production, and so forth. You can figure out these ratios by collecting data of your firm's output levels versus the number of employees in prior years. Sales data and the amount of products produced in previous years are examples of the type of output data firms use to calculate their productivity ratios. One of the benefits of understanding the productivity ratio is that it allows you to plan for different potential scenarios that reflect the growth or decline in the demand of your products. Of course, companies can intervene in ways that directly impact their productivity ratios.